Good afternoon, everyone. Coming to you live from the car today at a rec soccer game, because that's how life goes today. I have to apologize in advance as well. I may cough. I'm getting over something or dealing with allergies or both, and my congestion has turned into a dry cough, so I apologize in advance if that happens. I wanted to come today to talk about sugar. Last night we attended a graduation party, and at this graduation party, in addition to some beautiful cupcakes and a lovely celebratory cake, there was a candy bar. And I don't mean a Snickers, random Snickers sitting around. I mean like a full display of various delicious small little candies, M&Ms and Skittles and Reese's and Hershey's Kisses in beautiful little containers with bags that you could make a candy salad to take with you. And the woman who organized this party, whose son was graduating, a friend who knows me and knows that I come and talk about things like this, was talking to my kids and said, and don't forget to help yourself to the candy bar if your mom will let you. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a great opportunity for me to talk about something this weekend. I want to be super clear about something. I let my kids eat sugar. I love sugar in its various sources. It's delicious. It can be delicious. And I believe in letting my kids eat sugar, especially when sugar is presented in a form that we know that is the point of this food. Like a candy bar, a literal candy bar like a Snickers, or a bar of candy with its delicious M&Ms and Skittles and Starburst. Ice cream, brownies, even fruit. These things are what they present as. I know going into it that sugar is going to be one of the main components of that food. And I am okay with us eating it because we know it's in there. For me, where sugar gets really insidious is all of its hidden forms and all of those foods that we end up consuming that we don't necessarily think of as having sugars in them, but which actually can contain a lot of naturally occurring or added sugars. So the problem, of course, is that sometimes identifying what those foods are can be difficult. And there really are two primary resources that I go to understand the amount of sugar that is in the foods that we are consuming. And again, with the goal of trying to limit the added sugar that comes from those sources where I don't expect it, so that we can fully enjoy all of the sources where we know it exists: ice cream and cake and brownies. So the first way that you can look for added sugar, or total sugars, but to look for added sugars, is in the nutrient label. And I don't know how many of you out there read it. I'm constantly looking at these when I'm deciding on a food. There are multiple places to look. Under the total carbohydrate, you will see a measure of total sugars, and if they exist in the product, added sugars. Total sugars are the combination of naturally occurring and added sugars that are in that food. Something like yogurt, for example, milk has naturally occurring sugar in it, and that total sugars line will account for the amount that naturally occurs in the food, as well as the amount that is added to make it more sweet. Added sugars is exactly what it sounds like: sugars that have been added, in addition to any naturally occurring that are in the food already. It's important too, when you're doing this, to make sure that you look at the serving size. One of the ways that companies can make that amount look smaller is by decreasing the serving size. So while the amount of total or added sugars in a food might seem small, if you really think about how you consume that food, you might consume 2 or 3 times the number of servings. And so the amount that you are actually getting goes up. A little complicated math you need to do there, but I believe you can do it. The other place to look, of course, is in the ingredient list. This is where any food that is added, or any element that is part of that food, needs to be listed. It's listed in order from greatest to least in terms of what that product is composed of. And there are so many names for sugar. And this is where it can be a little challenging, and you have to do a little bit of educating yourself to make sure that you are actually spotting all of the sugars that are in there. Some of these names for sugars are names that you might expect. Beet sugar, cane sugar. These things have the word sugar in them, and they're pretty clear, right? We don't need to guess at what those are. It's important to read all the way through a list when you're doing this too, because sometimes you can use a little bit of multiple different kinds of sugar. So the total amount is more, but they don't necessarily look like they contribute a lot to any given food, because by weight, they are smaller than some of the more prominent ingredients in that food list. Some other names for sugar are names that might be familiar, but not as obvious that they are sugar. Corn syrup, or the ubiquitous high fructose corn syrup. Fruit juices also, fruit juice concentrate, these all are used to sweeten. Fruit juice is perhaps, you might think, more natural, but it is still a form of sugar that is being added to foods. And so look for fruit juice and fruit juice concentrate. Some other names are names that you might not know and might not expect, and yet, again, are all various forms of sugar. Things like dextrose, or I had to write these down because I don't remember them, mannitol, barley malt, and again, so many more. And this is, of course, to say nothing of artificial sweeteners, which could be a whole other video unto itself. And I'm not going to go into that right now. But artificial sweeteners are, of course, added. They don't necessarily add calories, of course, but they do still stimulate our taste buds to register that sweet flavor. And maybe sometime later, I will talk about the research around the role of artificial sweeteners in how we think about sweets and how we consume sweets. So, bottom line, read the ingredient labels, look at the amount of added and total sugars in a food, make sure that you're looking at the serving sizes as well, and look at the ingredient list to see how many different types of sugar are added and what those types are. And if you don't have a list, they exist all kinds of places on the internet. They're very easy to find, a list of different names for sugar. I will link to one that I have on Kizingo's website that makes it really easy to find. But that's what I've got for you this week. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.